Captain Jake Morrison stood on the metal deck of his ship, looking out at the stars through the big window on the bridge. His ship was called the U.S. Liberty, and it was the first human ship built to travel far into deep space. They had been flying for 3 months, heading toward a star system where their computers had found something strange. Lisa Harper sat at her station, watching the communication screens. She was the person who handled all the radio signals and messages that came to their ship. Today, she was getting signals that made no sense at all. The sounds were not like anything humans had ever heard before. "Captain Morrison, you need to hear this," Lisa said, her voice shaking a little. She had been working with space communications for 10 years, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. Jake walked over to her station and put on the headphones. What he heard made his heart beat faster. The sounds were clearly made by someone intelligent, but they were not human sounds. They came in patterns that seemed like a language, but it was completely alien. "Where is this coming from?" Jake asked. "The Kepler 442 system, sir. Right where our sensors detected those big artificial structures around the planet," Lisa replied. She pointed to her screen, which showed the location of the signals. Commander Ryan Phillips looked up from his tactical station. Ryan was in charge of weapons and defense systems on the ship. He was a serious man who always thought about security first. "Captain, I've been watching our sensors. Those structures around that planet are huge, much bigger than anything we could build." Jake felt a cold feeling in his stomach. For years, humans had wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now it looked like they had their answer, and it might not be a good one. Dr. Ben Carter came onto the bridge, carrying his tablet computer. Ben was a scientist who studied alien life, even though until today, no one had ever found any. He was excited but also scared. "Captain, I've been analyzing the signal patterns. This is definitely intelligent communication. They're trying to talk to us." "Can we understand what they're saying?" Jake asked. Ben shook his head. "Not yet, but I'm working on it. Give me a few hours, and I might be able to figure out some of it." Lisa suddenly looked up from her station with wide eyes. "Captain, the signal is changing. It's starting to sound like English." Everyone on the bridge gathered around Lisa's station. Through the speakers came a voice that was clearly not human, but it was speaking words they could understand. The voice was deep and harsh, like metal scraping against metal. "Attention, small ship. We are the Zorati Empire. We have been watching your primitive world for many cycles. You will listen to our message." Jake felt his mouth go dry. First contact with aliens, and they were calling humans primitive. This was not how anyone had hoped it would happen. The alien voice continued. "Your species will submit to Zorati rule. You will serve our empire as workers and slaves. This is not a request. This is a command." Ryan Phillips stood up straight, his hand moving toward the weapon controls. "Captain," this sounded like a threat. Jake held up his hand to keep Ryan calm. They needed to handle this carefully. "Lisa, can we send a message back to them?" "Yes, sir. The communication channel is still open." Jake thought for a moment about what to say. Humanity's first words to an alien species would be remembered forever. He had to get this right. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth ship U.S. Liberty. We come in peace and wish to establish friendly relations between our species." The response came quickly and was not friendly at all. "Peace is for the weak. The Zordi Empire does not make friends with primitive species. You exist to serve us now." Dr. Ben Carter was typing rapidly on his tablet, trying to learn more about these aliens from their communication style. "Captain, based on their language patterns and the way they speak, I think they've been listening to our radio signals for years. That's how they learned English." The alien voice spoke again. "We have studied your pathetic world. Your weapons are weak. Your ships are small. Your armies are nothing compared to ours. You have no choice but to surrender." Commander Phillips looked at his tactical screens. "Captain, I'm detecting massive energy signatures coming from the direction of their signal. Whatever ships they have, they're much larger than ours." Jake felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. He was just one ship captain, but he might be making decisions that affected all of humanity. "What do they want from us exactly?" The alien answered as if it had heard his question. "Your world will provide workers for our mines. Your strongest humans will serve in our armies. Your scientists will work on our projects. Your leaders will be replaced by Zorti commanders. Lisa looks sick. They want to make us slaves. Your species has 72 of your Earth hours to surrender completely. Send a message to your home world. Tell them the Zorti Empire has claimed your system. Resistance will result in the destruction of your entire planet. The communication channel went quiet. Jake and his crew stood in silence, trying to understand what had just happened. In less than 10 minutes, humanity had made first contact with aliens, and those aliens had declared war on Earth. Ryan Phillips was the first to speak. "Captain, we need to warn Earth immediately." "Already on it," Lisa said, her fingers flying over her communication controls. "Sending emergency transmission to Earth Command now." Dr. Ben Carter looked pale, but determined. "Captain, we need to learn everything we can about these Zorti. If we're going to fight them, we need to understand their technology and their capabilities." Jake nodded. "Ben, I want you to analyze every piece of data we got from that communication. Ryan, I want you to scan their ships and weapons as much as you can without getting too close. Lisa, keep that communication channel open in case they want to talk more." As his crew got to work, Jake stared out at the stars and wondered if humanity was ready for what was coming. Earth had always been alone in the universe, at least as far as they knew. Now they had neighbors, and those neighbors wanted to make them slaves. The next 72 hours would determine the future of the human race. President Helen Davis stood in the White House Situation Room, surrounded by the most powerful leaders on Earth. The emergency message from Captain Morrison had arrived just 2 hours ago, and already the world was in chaos. Every television channel was showing the same news. Aliens had contacted Earth, and they wanted to make humans their slaves. "How long do we have?" President Davis asked a room full of generals and admirals. Admiral Patricia Stone, the head of Earth's Space Forces, looked at her tablet. 68 hours, ma'am." Captain Morrison's message was clear. "The aliens gave us 72 hours to surrender, or they will destroy our planet." General Scott Hayes, who ran Earth's military defense systems, shook his head. "Our weapons are no match for alien technology. If they can travel between stars, their ships must be incredibly advanced." Colonel Danny Wright stepped forward. He was in charge of something called Strategic Defense Command, a secret military program that most people didn't know existed. "Sir, with respect, we might have more options than you think." President Davis looked at him with surprise. "What do you mean, Colonel?" Colonel Wright looked around the room nervously. "Ma'am, there are things we've been working on. Secret things. Projects that were started 50 years ago, just in case something like this ever happened." Major Susan Clark, who worked with Colonel Wright, nodded. "We called it Project Deep Shield. The idea was to prepare for the possibility of hostile alien contact." Admiral Stone frowned. "I've never heard of any Project Deep Shield." "That was the point," Colonel Wright said. "It was so secret that even most military leaders didn't know about it. Only a few people in each generation were told about it." President Davis sat down heavily in her chair. "Tell me everything." Colonel Wright took a deep breath. 50 years ago, some very smart people realized that if aliens ever found Earth, they might not be friendly. So they started a program to prepare for that possibility. They built secret facilities, developed new technologies, and created plans for defending Earth. Major Clark activated a large screen on the wall. It showed a map of the solar system with red dots scattered throughout it. "These are the locations of our hidden bases. We have facilities on the Moon, on Mars, in the asteroid belt, and on several other moons." General Hayes stared at the screen. "How is this possible? How could we build all of this without anyone knowing?" "Very carefully," Colonel Wright said. "Every launch was disguised as something else. Scientific missions, mining operations, research stations. But they were all part of the same plan." President Davis studied the map. "What exactly did you build in these secret bases?" Major Clark pressed another button, and the screen changed to show technical drawings. "Ships, ma'am. Warships. We've been building them for decades." The room went completely silent. Everyone stared at the drawings of massive military vessels that looked nothing like the exploration ships that Earth was known to have. Admiral Stone's voice was barely a whisper. How many ships? 137 combat vessels of various sizes, Colonel Wright said, plus support ships, supply vessels, and repair stations. President Davis stood up slowly. You're telling me that Earth has a secret space navy? Yes, ma'am. We've been preparing for this day for 50 years. Dr. Amy Foster, a scientist who worked on alien technology research, entered the room carrying a stack of papers. She worked with Dr. Greg Miller, who studied space physics. Ma'am, we've been analyzing the energy signatures from the alien ships that Captain Morrison detected. What did you find? President Davis asked. Dr. Foster spread her papers on the table. Their technology is advanced, but it's not magic. They use fusion reactors for power, particle beam weapons, and energy shields. All of these are technologies we understand. Dr. Greg Miller nodded. The aliens are definitely more advanced than our public technology, but they're not impossibly ahead of us. If we had the right equipment, we could fight them. Colonel Wright smiled for the first time since entering the room. We do have the right equipment. Our secret ships use many of the same technologies. President Davis looked around the room at all the faces staring at her. How do we activate the secret fleet? We send a coded message to all the hidden bases, Major Clark said. The message is called Protocol 7. It will wake up every secret facility and bring all our ships online. Admiral Stone was still trying to understand what she was hearing. Who commands a secret fleet? You do, ma'am, Colonel Wright said. As head of Earth Space Forces, you are the designated commander of all human military vessels, including the secret ones. President Davis made her decision. Do it. Activate Protocol 7. Major Clark spoke into her radio. All stations, this is White House Command. Execute Protocol 7 immediately. This is not a drill. Across the solar system, things began to happen. On the dark side of the moon, massive doors that had been sealed for decades began to open. Inside underground hangars, lights came on and computer systems activated. Huge ships that had been waiting in the darkness began to power up their engines. In the asteroid belt, what looked like ordinary mining stations suddenly revealed their true purpose. The mining equipment was real, but it was just a cover for hidden military bases. Ships that had been disguised as cargo vessels dropped their fake outer hulls and revealed the weapons underneath. On Mars, beneath the research stations that everyone knew about, there were other facilities that no one knew about. These hidden bases held the largest ships in the secret fleet, massive vessels that were designed to fight enemies with superior technology. Captain Morrison, still in deep space near the alien fleet, received a coded message on a frequency that he had never used before. The message was short. Jake, this is Admiral Stone. Help is coming. Keep the aliens busy for as long as you can. Earth is not as defenseless as they think. Jake read the message 3 times before he understood what it meant. Earth had secrets. Big secrets. And apparently, those secrets were about to be revealed. On his ship, Dr. Ben Carter was still analyzing the alien communications when he noticed something strange. Captain, the aliens are moving. Their ships are entering our solar system. Commander Ryan Phillips checked his sensors. Confirmed. 12 massive vessels, each one over 5 kilometers long. They're heading straight for Earth. Jake smiled grimly. He didn't know what Admiral Stone had planned, but he hoped it was good. The aliens were coming, and in less than 60 hours, Earth would have to fight for its survival. The greatest secret in human history was about to be revealed, and the galaxy would never be the same. War leader HFY stood on the command deck of his flagship, looking at the screens that showed the primitive human solar system. In his long career as a warrior for the Zordi Empire, he had conquered 17 different species. Some had fought back with crude weapons. Others had begged for mercy. But none had been as annoying as these humans. The small human ship kept sending messages. Captain Morrison and his crew had been talking for hours, offering everything they could think of. They wanted to trade. They wanted to share culture. They wanted to make peace. It was pathetic. War leader, said his tactical officer, the humans are still transmitting diplomatic requests. They are asking for more time to consider our demands. HFY made a sound that was like a growl. Typical primitive behavior. They think they can delay us with words. All species do this when they first meet the Zorti Empire. On the human ship UES Liberty, Captain Morrison was playing his part perfectly. He kept sending desperate messages to the alien fleet, while his crew secretly gathered information about their enemies. Commander Phillips was recording everything about the alien ships, their weapons, and how they moved through space. "Captain," Lisa Harper said quietly, "I'm getting strange readings from our long-range sensors. There are energy signatures coming from the outer parts of our solar system." Jake nodded slightly. He had received the coded message from Admiral Stone, so he knew something was happening. But he had to keep acting like Earth was helpless. "Please, War Leader Kethvar," Jake said into his communication system, "give us more time. Our people need to understand what you're asking of us." The alien commander's patience finally ran out. "Enough of this waste of time. You humans are like all primitive species. You think words will save you. Watch now as we demonstrate the power of the Zorati Empire." Kethvar turned to his weapons officer. "Target the human ships. Destroy them. Then we will demand Earth surrender." But before the Zorati ships could fire their weapons, something impossible appeared on their sensors. From behind the moon, massive energy readings began to show up. The tactical officer stared at a screen in disbelief. "War Leader, I'm detecting large ships coming from the moon's dark side. Their energy output is significant." Kethvar looked at the sensor display. "What kind of ships?" "Unknown class, sir. Much larger than the exploration vessels we've been monitoring." Then more contact appeared. From the asteroid belt, where the Zorati had assumed humans only had small mining operations, huge ships began to emerge. These were not the tiny vessels they had seen before. These were something else entirely. "War Leader," the tactical officer's voice was rising with concern, "I'm counting dozens of new contacts. They're coming from all over the system." Admiral Patricia Stone sat on the bridge of her flagship, a massive vessel that had been hidden in a secret base behind the moon for 20 years. The ship was called the USS Vengeance, and it was 4 kilometers long from front to back. Its hull was painted matte black with very few markings. "All ships, this is Admiral Stone," she said into her communication system. "Execute Operation Lighthouse. Show them what we've really been building." The USS Vengeance powered up its main weapons. Energy readings spiked to levels that the Zorati sensors had never recorded from a human vessel. The ship's reactor, which had been running on low power to stay hidden, came online at full capacity. One by one, the ships of Earth's secret fleet revealed themselves. From hidden bases throughout the solar system, warships that had been built in complete secrecy over 50 years began to appear. They came from behind asteroids, from underground facilities on Mars, from camouflage stations on the moons of Jupiter. The USS Thunder emerged from a hidden dock inside a hollowed-out asteroid. The USS Lightning uncloaked near Saturn's rings. The USS Storm dropped its disguise as a mining platform and revealed the massive guns that had been hidden beneath fake equipment. War Leader Kethvar stared at his tactical display as more and more human ships appeared. Each one was larger and more heavily armed than anything his intelligence reports had told him humans could build. "How many ships are there?" he demanded. His tactical officer was frantically trying to count the new contacts. "At least 100, War Leader. Possibly more. They're still appearing." Captain Morrison, still playing his role as a desperate explorer, smiled to himself as he watched the alien fleet's reaction on his sensors. The Zorati ships were slowing down, clearly confused by what they were seeing. Admiral Stone opened a communication channel to the Zorati flagship. When she spoke, her voice was completely different from the pleading tones the aliens had been hearing from Captain Morrison. "War Leader Kethvar, this is Admiral Patricia Stone of Earth Defense Command. I think there's been a misunderstanding." The alien commander's response was full of shock and anger. "What is the meaning of this? Where did these ships come from?" "You made an error in your intelligence gathering," Admiral Stone replied calmly. "You studied our radio broadcasts and observed our exploration vessels. But you missed something important about humans. More human ships continued to appear. The secret fleet was massive, with vessels of every size and type. There were huge battleships designed to fight other large ships. There were fast destroyers built to hunt smaller targets. There were carriers that launched fighter craft, and cruisers that could fight at long range. Dr. Ben Carter, broadcasting from the science vessel UES Newton, added his own message to the alien fleet. War leader, your ships are impressive, but they were designed to intimidate species that had never seen war before. Our ships were designed by a species that has been fighting wars for thousands of years. The human fleet began to move into attack formation. Every ship knew exactly where to go and what to do. They had been practicing these maneuvers for decades, waiting for this moment. Captain Morrison finally dropped his act of being a helpless explorer. War leader Kethvar, you wanted to see what human technology could do. Now you're seeing our real technology, not our exploration ships. War leader Kethvar looked at his tactical display and realized he had made a terrible mistake. Instead of conquering a primitive species with a few small ships, he was facing a military force that appeared to be roughly equal to his own fleet in size and possibly superior in coordination. Admiral Stone made one final transmission before the battle began. You have 30 seconds to begin withdrawing from our solar system. We are not a primitive species asking for mercy. We are humans, and this is our space. War leader Kethvar stared at his tactical screen with growing fear. The display showed 137 human warships spread throughout their solar system. These were not the small exploration vessels his scouts had reported. These were military ships built for war, and they were moving with the precision of a trained army. His tactical officer was sweating as he tried to analyze the human fleet. War leader, their ships are larger than our intelligence reports indicated. Some of them are nearly as big as our own dreadnoughts. Kethvar had conquered many worlds, but he had never seen anything like this. Every species the Zordi Empire had encountered had been caught completely unprepared. They had primitive weapons, small ships, and no real military organization. But these humans were different. Admiral Patricia Stone sat in the command chair of the USS Vengeance, watching the alien fleet's reaction to her ships. She had spent 30 years preparing for this moment, and everything was going exactly as planned. Communications, open a channel to the entire human fleet, she ordered. Channel open, Admiral. All ships. This is Admiral Stone. Formation 7. Remember your training. These aliens made the mistake of threatening our home. Show them why that was a bad idea. The human fleet began to move in a coordinated pattern that took the Zordi completely by surprise. Instead of charging forward in a disorganized attack, the human ships spread out in a complex formation that surrounded the alien fleet from multiple directions. Captain Jake Morrison, now revealed as a commander of a stealth destroyer instead of an exploration ship, opened his own communication channel to the Zordi flagship. War leader Kethvar, you studied our radio broadcast for years. You learned our languages. You watched our movies and listened to our music. But you missed the most important thing about human culture. The alien commander's voice was filled with anger and confusion. What are you talking about, human? You missed our history, Jake replied. Every movie you watched, every story you heard, they all had the same lesson. Humans don't give up. We don't surrender. And we definitely don't become slaves. Dr. Ben Carter, broadcasting from a science vessel, added his own message. War leader, your species has been spacefaring for thousands of years. You've grown comfortable conquering primitive worlds. But humans spent thousands of years learning to fight each other before we ever left our planet. The human ships continued their coordinated movement, and the Zordi officers were beginning to panic. They had never seen such precise fleet coordination from a species they considered primitive. Every human child learns about our wars, Dr. Carter continued. We fought with spears, then swords, then guns, then tanks, then aircraft. We've been perfecting the art of warfare for our entire history. Admiral Stone opened another channel, this time directly to War Leader Kethvar. You made several mistakes, War Leader. First, you assumed that because our exploration ships were small, all our ships were small. Second, you thought that because we wanted peace, we were weak. The USS Thunder, a massive battlecruiser, powered up its main guns. Energy readings from the human ship spiked to levels that matched the Zorti dreadnoughts. Other human ships followed suit, their weapons coming online with displays of power that shocked the alien observers. Third, Admiral Stone continued, you assumed that because you had never seen our military ships, they didn't exist. You forgot that any species smart enough to build spaceships is probably smart enough to hide them. War leader Kethvar was beginning to understand the magnitude of his error. How long have you been preparing for this? 50 years, Admiral Stone replied. Ever since we first started looking at the stars and realized that someday something might come looking for us. Commander Ryan Phillips, aboard the U.S. Liberty, added his own observation. War leader, you've been conquering primitive species for so long that you forgot what a real military looks like. We're not farmers with spears. We're soldiers with weapons designed specifically to kill ships like yours. The human fleet had completed its deployment. The Zorati ships were now surrounded, with human vessels positioned at optimal firing angles. Every human ship had multiple target locks on the alien fleet. Major Susan Clark, now aboard the command cruiser USS Freedom, delivered perhaps the most chilling message of all. War leader, you came to our solar system expecting to find scared primitives begging for mercy. Instead, you found a military force that has been training for this exact scenario for decades. The Zorati tactical officer was frantically running calculations. War leader, their formation is designed to maximize crossfire while minimizing their exposure to our weapons. This is advanced military tactics. Kethvar realized that his fleet was in serious danger. The humans had not only hidden a massive military force, but they had trained that force to fight against technologically superior enemies. Admiral Stone made one final transmission before the battle would begin. War leader Kethvar, you have exactly 30 seconds to order your fleet to withdraw from our solar system. If you choose to fight, you will discover that humans are very good at breaking things. Dr. Amy Foster, monitoring the alien communications from her technical station, detected something important. Admiral, the Zorati are communicating with each other on their internal channels. They're arguing about whether to fight or retreat. Can you tell what they're saying? Admiral Stone asked. Their junior officers are recommending retreat, but war leader Kethvar is refusing to back down. His pride won't let him run for what he still thinks are primitives. Captain Morrison shook his head. Then he's about to learn a very painful lesson about underestimating humans. The 30 seconds were almost up. Throughout the human fleet, weapons officers were making final preparations. Gun crews were loading their most powerful ammunition. Energy weapon systems were charging to full power. Fighter pilots were strapping into their cockpits. Colonel Danny Wright, now aboard the battleship USS Defiance, opened one last communication channel. War leader, humans have a saying, don't start a fight you can't finish. You started this fight when you threatened our planet. Now we're going to finish it. War leader Kethvar looked around his command bridge at his officers. They were all waiting for his decision. He could order a retreat and save his fleet, but return to the Zorati Empire in disgrace. Or he could fight what appeared to be an evenly matched battle and hope that Zorati technology would prove superior to human tactics. His pride made the decision for him. All ships, attack formation. We will show these humans the power of the Zorati Empire. Admiral Stone heard the alien commander's decision and nodded grimly. All ships. This is Admiral Stone. The aliens have chosen to fight. Execute Battle Plan Alpha. Make them regret threatening Earth. The greatest space battle in human history was about to begin. War leader Kethvar made his final decision with the arrogance that had served him well in conquering 17 other worlds. All ships, open fire. Destroy the human fleet. The 12 massive Zorati dreadnoughts unleashed their full firepower. Brilliant beams of energy lanced through space, each one capable of melting through several meters of solid metal. The alien weapons were impressive, designed to intimidate primitive species into immediate surrender. But the humans had spent 50 years studying energy weapons and preparing for exactly this moment. Admiral Patricia Stone watched the alien attack begin and smiled grimly. All ships, execute Defensive Pattern 7. Show them what real shields look like. The human warships activated defense systems that the Zorti had never encountered before. Instead of trying to absorb the energy attacks, the human shields redirected them, sending the deadly beams spinning off into empty space where they could do no harm. Captain Jake Morrison, commanding his destroyer USS Liberty, was the first to return fire. But his weapons were not energy beams like the aliens expected. Instead, his ship launched solid metal projectiles accelerated to incredible speeds using magnetic fields. The kinetic round struck the lead Zorti dreadnought at 20% of light speed. The alien shields, designed to disperse energy weapons, did almost nothing to stop solid matter moving that fast. The projectiles punched through the alien hull like bullets through paper. War leader Kethvar stared in shock as his flagship shuddered under the impact. What kind of weapons are those? His tactical officer was frantically analyzing the human attack. Kinetic projectiles, war leader. Solid metal accelerated to relativistic speeds. Our shields are not designed to stop physical objects moving that fast. The human fleet opened fire with coordinated precision that stunned the Zorti observers. Every human ship was linked to the others through a tactical network that allowed them to concentrate their firepower with devastating accuracy. When 3 human ships fired at the same target, their projectiles arrived at exactly the same moment. Admiral Stone's flagship, the USS Vengeance, demonstrated another human innovation. Instead of firing individual shots, her ship launched a spread of hundreds of smaller projectiles, creating a cloud of destruction that was impossible to avoid completely. Commander Ryan Phillips, aboard the Liberty, coordinated the attack on the second Zorti dreadnought. Target their weapon systems first. Take away their ability to fight back. The human tactics were unlike anything the Zorti had encountered. Instead of trying to destroy the alien ships completely, they focused on disabling specific systems. Weapons, engines, and communication arrays were targeted with surgical precision. Dr. Ben Carter, monitoring the battle from his science vessel, provided tactical analysis to the fleet. Their hull strength is actually weaker than we expected. Our projectiles are penetrating much deeper than the simulations predicted. The battle raged for 6 hours. The Zorti fought with the desperation of warriors who realized they had walked into a trap. Their energy weapons were powerful, and they managed to destroy 18 human ships. But for every human vessel they destroyed, they lost critical systems on their own ships. The humans fought with the coordination of a pack of wolves that had been hunting together for years. Every ship knew exactly where to be and when to fire. Their tactics maximized damage to the enemy while minimizing their own losses. Major Susan Clark, commanding the cruiser USS Freedom, led a group of smaller ships in attacks on the Zorti flanks. Hit and run tactics. Strike fast, then get out of range before they can return fire. The alien fleet, designed to fight against disorganized primitive forces, could not adapt to the human sophisticated battle plans. They were used enemies that either fled in terror or attacked in desperate, uncoordinated charges. War leader Kethvar watched his fleet being systematically destroyed by an enemy he had dismissed as primitive. 3 of his dreadnoughts were completely destroyed, their hulls torn apart by repeated kinetic impacts. 4 more were crippled and drifting, their engines dead and weapons offline. War leader, his tactical officer, reported with fear in his voice, "We have lost more than half our combat capability. The humans have only lost about 15% of their ships." Admiral Stone opened a communication channel to the surviving Zorti vessels. "War leader Kethvar, your flagship is badly damaged and most of your fleet is destroyed. I'm offering you one chance to surrender." The alien commander's pride was finally broken. His voice, when he replied, was filled with defeat. I surrender. Please stop the attack." But Admiral Stone's response revealed the final truth about humanity's nature. "I'm sorry, war leader, but we're not accepting surrenders today. You came to our home system with threats of slavery and genocide. You made the rules of this engagement when you demanded our complete submission." Dr. Amy Foster, from her position on the technical analysis ship, broadcast a message that would be remembered throughout the galaxy. "War leader, you studied our entertainment broadcasts, but you missed the most important lesson. In every human story, there's one universal truth. We never forgive those who threaten our families. The human fleet continued its methodical destruction of the Zorati force. Ship after ship was disabled or destroyed. The aliens who had come to conquer Earth were learning what it meant to face humanity's full military might. Captain Morrison, watching another Zorati dreadnought break apart under concentrated fire, made an observation that would define humanity's reputation among the stars. They thought our exploration ships were warships. They had no idea what our actual warships looked like. That was their first and last mistake. When the battle finally ended, only 3 Zorati ships remained intact enough to fly. War leader Kethvar's flagship was barely functional, held together by emergency repairs and determination. Admiral Stone allowed the survivors to leave the solar system, but not before Dr. Foster transmitted one final message that would spread throughout the galaxy's communication networks. To any other species listening to this transmission, Dr. Foster said, "Remember what happened here today. The Zorati Empire came to our system expecting to find frightened primitives. Instead, they found humans. We are not prey animals waiting to be hunted. We are predators who learn to build starships." As the shattered remains of the Zorati fleet limped away toward deep space, humanity realized that everything had changed. They were no longer alone in the universe, and they were no longer hiding. The age of human expansion among the stars had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.